Hello, everyone. Welcome to our program. This session is part of our Voices from the Field webinar series, a post-conference webinar series following our SEL Vision Summit, Leading a Legacy, which occurred on November 3rd. I'm Kyla Coram, Marketing Events Manager here at Aperture Education. Thank you for taking the time to join us today as we learn together. Before we begin, let's go over some housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded and everyone will receive a copy of the recording at the end of the presentation to view or share it with colleagues. If you're having trouble seeing the screen, you should first exit full screen. If you still can't see the slide, you can double click on the small box at the top middle of your screen and it should bring up the slide deck. You should also see 4 functions at the bottom of the screen. The chat feature can be used to chat together and participate with forthcoming questions. Why don't we give the chat box a try? Please let us know your name, district, or school, and your job title. Give you guys a few moments to just drop everything in the chat. Hi, Jessie. We're so happy you're with us today. Hi, Jing. Nice to meet you. Wow, from China. That's amazing. Welcome, welcome. Hi, Brooke. Welcome. Hi, Cherise. Hi, Christina. Wonderful to have you guys with us today. Just everybody else keep dropping in the chat. We're also going to use the Q&A feature today. If you have a question during Jessie's presentation, please add it in the Q&A box. We will answer all questions at the end of her presentation. Closed captioning is also available. You can toggle that on or off at your discretion. And finally, the raise hand function. This feature can be used if there are any tech issues. If you raise your hand, we will send you a private chat to address any issues. Jessie may also use this feature to include you in a discussion. Jessie Fuller is joining us today to share her presentation, Holistic MTSS, Integrating Space and Structures that Support, Engage, and Empower Staff. A California League of Schools Teacher of the Year with experience in both comprehensive and alternative settings, Jessie brings 19 years of classroom experience to her work. She currently serves as a teacher on special assignment for multi-tiered systems of support. She provides coaching and professional learning to educators in a variety of areas, including social emotional learning, trauma-invested practices, restorative practices, educator well-being, and mindfulness. Passionate about supporting new aspiring teachers, she also serves as a professor in the teaching program at Chapman University. When she's not playing with her children or her dogs, Jessie can usually be found watching old 80s movies. Jessie's presentation will last approximately 40 to 45 minutes and will answer any questions you have at the end. But please join me in welcoming Jessie Fuller. Jessie, take it away.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Kyla and the Aperture team for having me. I feel so grateful to be here. And a huge thank you to all of you. I know how precious time is in education and how busy and full your lives are. So truly, thank you for giving a really valuable commodity, which is your time and attention. So really, really appreciate you tuning in. And just a little bit about, Kyla already gave a little intro, just a little bit about kind of my educational journey. So I've been in the classroom 17 years. This is year 19 for me in education, which is amazing because I'm like 23, so I don't know how that happens. Maybe just bad math because I'm a language arts teacher. But no, this is so almost 20 years. I loved every bit of my time in both the traditional setting, the alternative setting, and then along my way in education, I met some wonderful women who also were passionate not just about supporting students in both their academic and their social emotional health, but also supporting the adults behind the students, because when we have thriving adults, we have thriving kids. So that's our little thriving team. And we want to give you practical, put into use tomorrow strategies that go along today. We will talk big picture, but I hope there's a nugget you can take away from here that you can be like, okay, I can put that into practice very soon. So Kyla's amazing. She's going to drop a link for a resource guide. So anything we talk about here, any activity we do, you'll have a link to that. If it's a slide deck or an activity guidelines or assessment, and you'll be able to use that and do what you do in education, which is we make it better, right? So adapt it, modify it, and make it fit for your use. So I hope you get something new out of today, but I also hope today is an affirmation of all the great work that you're doing. Sometimes there's so many things that we're constantly working to fix or do better, which is great. That's how we grow in education, right? Or in life in general. But I hope today is maybe an affirmation of, yes, these practices are working. And when I know the why or the research behind them, I can prioritize them. So I hope that is also something that happens as a result of today. So I think we already did this, which was great, which is who's here, which I love so far. So I want to shout out. We have social workers, we have professional learning trainers, we have counselors, teachers, assistant principals. If I missed anybody's role, please fill me in. And I love that we have people tuning in from all different places. I am actually in Southern California, so I'm sorry I have a bright light on me right now because it's still dark right now. So our time currently is 7:08, so it's still early morning here. And if you want to, for fun, you could just include in there, if you could only eat one food for a week, what would it be? Me, I'm doing guacamole and chips all day, every day. And I should say, in this imaginary scenario, the food that you eat every day doesn't have to count against calories or anything. Just what's something you could consume every day? Oh, yes, Charisse. And if I say your name incorrectly, please correct me. Write it phonetically in there. Sushi, yes. Taylor, all day long pizza. And Kelly, yes. Siobhan's feeling me with the chips. Yes. Sushi or pizza. We have a lot of similarities. Oh, good. Charisse, thanks. Thanks for letting me know. I love it. So now that I've made you thoroughly hungry, let's go ahead and check in on an emotional level. So we'd love to know, where are you at, my friends? We are at Thursday, right? So we're more than halfway through our week. But if you had to choose a gift that best reflected how you feel right now, or how, like, what can you relate to most, let us know. And combinations are welcome. You can be like, Jessie, I am like a C, but also with a side of B. Like I'm just hanging in there, but I'm doing it. So let us know, where are you at this morning? Thanks, Charisse, for getting in there, warming up our chat box. We got some BCs, we got some F and Gs. Thanks, Kyla, and a little E. Yes, I know, I'm a little E too. I didn't do breakfast yet. Thanks, Taylor and Siobhan and Abigail. Let's see, I got to look at my chat box right in front of the letters. I got to see G. Oh, G. Oh, good. Yeah, spread some of that out our way, Abigail. Well, wherever you're at this morning, I just want to say truly thanks for being here. And I appreciate the honesty. Oh, there we go. Got it going again. And just one thing I want to say about any type of check-ins, because I know probably a lot of us do check-ins maybe with students, is they're hugely important, right? I know for me, oftentimes I'll go through a whole day without ever checking in with how I'm really feeling, right? Especially in education, we're go, 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 and we're making so many micro decisions so quickly in a day. Until I get home, right? And my husband asked me some very like benign question, and then all of a sudden, like, he has like, "Hey, are you picking up one of our kids from swim, or is it me?" And I was like, "We already talked about this," right? Like I lash out in a tone that I don't mean, and that's really really spicy. And I realized it's because I was annoyed at something that was happening earlier, but I never really checked in with myself, right? Never took that moment to kind of manage what was happening in real time. So emotions come out, right? They'll just come out. They'll come out somewhere. So I think it's really important to understand, especially emotions. I hope everything I'm going to share today is ways that I've learned in real time. I think emotional literacy or social emotional learning has become so important to me because they've not only helped me as an educator, but I hope they've also made me a better friend, a better parent, a better spouse. Still working on that piece, right? As you heard from my earlier example. But I feel like these are skills that I use not just in my professional world, but in my personal world as well. And my go-to strategy for dealing with emotions that I perceived as ones that I wanted to avoid, because we know emotions aren't good or bad, right? All emotions are just communication. Was to tuck it away in a folder to deal with never, right? Like la la la, I can't hear you, I can't see you, especially again those emotions I wanted to avoid. But now I realize when I feel stressed, overwhelmed, anxious, annoyed, right? Those things that I was trying to get away from. Um, Actually, if I can just name it, that helps to tame it, right? Thank you, Dr. Dan Siegel, right? Doctor out of UCLA, and he tells us that actually just by naming it, what you're inviting your brain to do is walk from its downstairs center, right? It's fight or flight, stress brain mode, up to the upstairs part, which is your prefrontal cortex. I'm holding up my hand because he gives us the hand model, right? So the if you can imagine, your hand here represents, right, what's behind your forehead, right, that cortical level of your brain. And he says just by naming it to taming it, you're inviting that part of your brain that can do more rational thinking, more emotional regulation to come on board, right? And it also helps us to connect when we can share with others how we're feeling. What we just did right here, I know it was a small little micro version of it, but when you can see how others are feeling, it doesn't necessarily maybe change your internal landscape, but maybe it changes your external landscape, but it changes maybe how you feel on the inside, because you know you're not alone, right? And what's shareable becomes more bearable. What's mentionable is manageable. And that's why we always want to go to connection, connecting with others, connecting first to ourselves, then connecting to others before we dive into any content, right? With students or with adults. In fact, I really want to emphasize, as you know, today's title is about adult wellness and about making sure adults have their needs met. So anytime we're bringing adults together, whether it's a staff meeting, right? Whether it's some professional learning, whether it's a collaboration time, we are making sure that we're checking in with adults as well, doing one of those little gift check-ins, right? Or doing a question of the day, just so they have that time to feel connected to self and to others, right? Because self-awareness is the beginning kind of competency with SEL, right? Because I can't manage what I'm not aware of. So now that we've kind of connected with ourselves, connected with others, let's go ahead and jump into talking a little bit about MTSS. So we know it's a multi-tiered systems of support, right? And often multi-tiered systems of support, just like any other initiative that's perceived as new or has a lot of different facets, there can be staff resistance to it, which makes sense, right? Because what I've noticed a lot with MTSS is there's a struggle with clarity. Oftentimes we're not all even on the same page as to what the tiers mean, right? What intervention even means when we're talking about multi-systems of support. Or we struggle with achieving fidelity, being consistent with how we implement. So many initiatives, just again, and this is not just distinct to MTSS, but any initiative that comes through education or any organization, oftentimes we're like, hey, we're going to do this thing, but then the members of the organization don't see follow through. Like we say, we're going to have these multi-tiered systems of support, and tier one means all students get this. So that means all students get this type of academic support, and all students get this type of social emotional support, right? Or all students get this behavioral support. So we say we're going to do this, but then that's not followed through with. And so members of the organization start to get a little leery or suspect, like, we said we were going to do this thing, but we actually didn't. We didn't provide this for all students, right? And then we said at the tier two level, if kids were struggling, then we were going to give them additional supports in academic, social, emotional, and behavioral domains. And we didn't do that. And then we really didn't do it at the tier three level, which was supposed to be one-on-one support, which then kind of leads to just feeling like this is just going to be an initiative that just passes, right? Like, I'm just going to wait this out. How many of us have, been in that educational fatigue mode where we're like, yeah, I'm just going to wait this out. Like, this is not an initiative that's going to stick, right? Or sometimes it's just perceived as this is too much work, so I'm not going to do it, right? So we're going to talk about ways to really think about how to address some of these pieces. And my biggest thing, if there's one thing we take away, is that multi-tiered systems of supports has to start with us, the adults, right? We often skip right to kids, which is brilliant. In education, we are in the job of supporting children. But as we look at like a successful leader here, I love what Richard Branson says. He says, clients do not come first. Employees come first. If you take care of your employees, they will take care of the clients. And in education, we talk about student engagement, parent engagement, community engagement, but how often in education do we talk about employee engagement? The people, you and I and all of us here, who really work on a daily basis to invest in our most precious thing, which is kids, right? Which is beautiful. That's why we come here. But we have to feel at our best to be able to support kids at their best, to be their best. So I love this idea. I do love plants. I'm a succulent girl. And I have to tell you, I've killed many succulents in my life, many, and other indoor plants. And I would like to say, oh, that was the plant's fault. Like, oh, that was that monstera's fault that it didn't survive, right? Or that's on that cactus, right? But well, now I jumped just for any true plant people. You'll know that succulents and cactus don't, they're distinct. So I want to honor that. But I blame it on the plant, right? But that's not the case, right? Like if a plant dies, who's that on? That's on me. I'm the caretaker of the environment. Maybe I gave it too much water, too little water, too much sunlight, not enough sunlight, right? So when a flower doesn't bloom, you fix the environment in which it grows, not the flower, right? And I think this happens a lot in education, right? At the student level, it's like, oh, well, that student doesn't want to learn, or that student isn't motivated. So we blame it on the kid, right? Or sometimes, we blame it on like, oh, these teachers aren't just willing to buy in, or, or we kind of push it down the road. And it's like, well, what if instead of blaming, if we look at, well, how can we create an environment? How can we create a structure that supports growth and thriving, right? How do we create environments where our students and our employees and our leaders are all flourishing? So here's some of it. Now, this is not going to, solve all the problems, right? Or the issues that we discussed earlier as to why there's, hesitation, or why MTSS implementation fails. But here are 4 things to consider. This is based off the research of well-being and employee engagement, of how we can keep people connected to the bigger picture, right? So we're going to look at staff well-being, belonging, connection, relationships, purpose, agency, voice, and choice, and mindset and resilience as it relates, again, to adults first. And all these things are applicable, of course, for students as well. Now, with that said, I want to let us know, since we are just a 45-minute session, think of this as like your appetizer menu. This is like your your chips and dip, your calamari, your pita bread, your wings, whatever your appetizer of choice is. So we're just gonna pick a few things from each, okay? So there's more, but I just want you, if you're like, wait a minute, I have some questions about each part, but please stop me for sure. But I want to give you just a little sample of each quadrant, okay? So let's look at teachers' emotions. So a study by Yale Center of Emotional Intelligence, run by Mark Brackett. Maybe some of you have read his book. It's a great one, Permission to Feel. He's also behind the Mood Meter. In collaboration with CASEL, the Collaborative for Academic and Social Emotional Learning, found that during the pandemic, the most 5 mentioned feelings among teachers were they felt anxious, fearful, worried, overwhelmed, and sad. So the question that they just asked teachers was, please describe in your own words the 3 most frequent emotions you feel each day. And we might say, well, Jessie, that makes sense. It was the pandemic. Of course, teachers are going to feel that way. But he actually ran the same study. So these were the results from 2020. But he ran that same study. Sorry, did it? I apologize. Yes, during the pandemic. And let me make sure I have the right ones here. This is totally my bad. I'm sorry. So on the video recording, I meant to change that. I meant to change that to read that when he did it in 2017, that the 5 most mentioned feelings among teachers were frustrated, overwhelmed, stressed, tired, and happy. So you do see some emotions in there, like happy, right? But even in 2017, what teachers were saying is they were feeling frustrated, overwhelmed, stressed, and tired, right? So this was pre-pandemic time. And I don't want to leave leaders out of this, because sometimes we're like, oh, if leaders would just do more. But leaders are expressing, right, their own level of overwhelm, right? When they asked leaders, how are you feeling? They also said anxiety, overwhelmed, sad, stressed, frustrated, uncertain, and worried, right? It's a lot as an educational leader to be carrying those things. So I would just love to hear from you. If you could, in the chat box, and see here I got the dates right. Again, I apologize for that slide. In 2017, here's what you saw teachers were saying were their most felt emotions. Then you see what they were saying in 2020, and you see what leaders are saying. So just with either your emoji feature, right? Because now you can do emojis in Zoom. Thank you, Zoom Update. With an emoji or with words, if you just want to respond with words, that's fine. I would love to hear just what's your reaction to seeing some of this. Is this consistent with what you're seeing with where you're involved in education, or would you say no, it's very different where I'm at, or that trend makes sense to you? So I would love to hear any reactions to what some of the research says. Or like I said, if you want to put an emoji in there, that's great too. Oftentimes when I use emojis, the one with the big eyes, like, what?
While we're waiting, Jessie, for them to add in, I just wanted to share, For those of you who don't know, I left public ed at the end of last school year, and I am hearing these words from my teacher friends still. And what I find interesting is that that anxiety piece is now a part of those feelings, whereas the anxiety did not really exist prior to 2020, at least from this study, right?
Yeah, that's really interesting. And then, of course, the fearful piece, right? Which in 2020, when this was done, which was May 2020, so this was really early on, right? When we were first at the beginning part of pandemic, so still a lot of uncertainty. But I think you're right. I think it's really interesting. And I would say now it's kind of even morphed to anxious because they're dealing, now we're dealing with feeling like we need to catch students up, or there's so many behaviors that we don't know how to handle, right? Post pandemic. So, or, we're kind of still in it, but right now, at this point in 2022. So thanks, Siobhan and Christina and Brooke and Taylor and Sharice and Kyla for what you shared. That yeah, kind of consistent with what we're seeing, right? And some of the general causes that teachers were pointing to of burnout, right? Because really these can contribute, those factors, if that's the sustained feelings we have over a certain amount of time. Some of the causes were a lack of strong leadership they felt, or a negative climate, increased job demands, especially around assessment, just addressing challenging behaviors. And again, I think we're seeing this a lot now. This is what I get all the time, because this is what I'm called in for, to support multi-tiered systems of support for students quite a bit. So, I'm dealing a lot with the behaviors, or kids not engaging with academics, right? Or like, how are we getting kids to engage? Feeling like there's not a lot of autonomy, or just really limited training to social emotional learning, which woohoo, Aperture to be doing that important work. Because a lot of times, again, we jump right to students, how we can support their social emotional health, but what are we doing for the adults, right? So why MTSS for adults? Well, because based on these survey findings that teachers are feeling stressed, burnt out, and fatigued and anxious, we need to do something for us, right? We need to make sure that there's not just a quiet quitting, right? I know some of you mentioned in the chat box that great teachers are leaving the field. So we know that burnout is an issue, right? And burnout, just to be clear, so we're all on the same page, is really characterized by being just exhausted, not feeling like you have enough resources to meet all the demands of your personal, but really your professional duties. When you feel like the what's expected of you and the resources that you have, the capacity you have doesn't quite meet that, right? And it can really be a byproduct of just is a very demanding environments, or when you so much is asked of you on an emotional level, right? So symptoms of burnout can be really chronic fatigue, sleep difficulties, impaired job performance. So feeling like, oh, I used to come and be really motivated, and I had a lot of energy, and I could stay really focused and spend a lot of time, and I wanted to make, great lessons, or I wanted to put together a great professional learning opportunity, or I wanted to go see my staff if you're a leader here, right? Or I wanted to meet with students and support them. I know we have some social workers, counselors, which is brilliant, and do small groups, but just not feeling that way anymore. Poor job satisfaction, irritability, right? Or increased use of other things to cope, right, with not the healthiest of ways. I also just want to add this in here, because there's some increased amounts of literature being written around this, and I think it's kind of a really interesting kind of subcategory of burnout, which is just this sense of feeling demoralized, feeling like teachers really aren't being valued for their good work, or they're not feeling like they're meeting, or there's conflict between what they're being asked to do and what they believe is the best thing to do in education, right? When there's a conflict between like, hey, this is what I think is great for kids, but this is the box that I'm kind of, being asked to stay in. And I want to be really clear on what it is not. Burnout is not an indication or reflection of an individual's lack of resilience. It doesn't mean you're not a resilient person if you identified or could relate to any of those burnout bullet points. I know I definitely could. This is, again, I want you to know these are things in my journey. This is not like, oh, this is what I'm hearing from other people. Like, this is a journey I've walked too personally. And so this topic is of increased interest to me, right? It doesn't indicate weakness. It's not a sign that you're not good at what you do, right? In fact, you can still be showing up, and you might be exceptional in spite of all those ways that you're feeling, right? And still serving your colleagues and students really, really beautifully. And it's not a lack of caring or commitment. right? It's not that at all. In fact, that might be what's causing some dissonances, because you're like, no, I really believe in the good work that I'm doing. In fact, this is from Doris Santaro. She wrote a book, Demoralized: Why Teachers Leave the Profession They Love. And she says, what really educators want is to engage in good work that benefits students, communities, and the profession. And we become frustrated when we feel like we can't do that. Like when we feel like our hands are tied, or we feel like, hey, we're not really able to push in to the work that's most important. So if we want to retain and recruit great people that will stay in education, right, that don't leave in those first 5 years, we all know that statistic, right, is we just really need to start looking at what are we doing to attract and retain highly qualified employees, right? And what are we doing? What are we putting in place to not only, once we get those great people, keep those great people? And that's really what we're talking about here today when we're talking about systems or tiers of supports for our adults. Once they're part of our communities, how do we keep them there? And really, I'm going to propose that effective interventions are not just when we expect individuals to be in charge of their own personal resilience or their own well-being, but when we have things put into place, when we systematize well-being, and we just make it part of the culture, right? And we don't talk about it, it's like, hey, this is something you should do in your own time. Or I think, and that kind of can become almost patronizing, right? Where we're like, hey, just make sure you're taking care of yourself, or hey, make sure you're taking time for you. I know, like, seems almost sometimes disingenuous. Like you're telling me all the demands I have to meet, and then you're saying, and find a time to take care of yourself, but we're not integrating that into the general system, right? So just some big ideas here, right? Adults who serve students, if they're unwell and unsupported, then we can't serve students well. And think of support at systems level. So not just on the individual level, but how can we create those pieces within the organization? Let's meet our educators where they're at, right? To create a sustainable culture of wellness. And just consider, again, what are our systems doing to really support well-being? And I know that's a lot of words on a slide. So concisely put, starts with adults, and we need some systems around it, right? Because self-care is important, but it's just not enough. Again, self-care puts a lot of emphasis on the individual. What are you doing to maintain your wellness? And again, that is important. We all have a responsibility as individuals, right? But here's some other quotes from teachers, but kind of what I just mentioned. I think that when people in charge recommend wellness to teachers instead of fixing the situation, it comes off as being insincere, patronizing, or even short-sighted, wanting just like to kind of put a Band-Aid on it, right? So again, what are we doing at the bigger level? I appreciate one more, Patricia Jennings. She's written extensively about mindfulness, especially mindfulness in schools, which we know mindfulness is a huge strategy for helping increase your own personal well-being. But as she even is very keen to point out, mindfulness can help teachers be more aware in the moment when their own stress level is starting to rise and do things proactively to calm themselves. But mindfulness is not going to help with the kinds of structural problems that stretch teachers beyond their limits. Just telling a teacher to breathe when they haven't had a break all day isn't really going to help, right? So yes, we have to do it. It's the yes and. Yes, we should be teaching beautiful mindfulness techniques, breathing techniques. But what are we doing in a day so they're not having to call on that strategy all the time, right? So that things are just already built in to anticipate their needs. So some pieces to do, some real more granular pieces, and these are on your resource guide. So really take a look at just taking inventory at your site, or if you're at the district level, what current efforts are being made around well-being. And quite honestly, when we've done this with other groups, because we've done this presentation with districts or with school sites, sometimes, or a lot of times, actually say most of the time, what people have found is there are some well-being initiatives in place, but people just don't know about them. Like one district we work with, they're like, yeah, do you know there's free membership? Anybody in the district can get a free membership to the gym. Only like 2 people in a room of like 50 knew that was the case, right? They're like, no. So there was something, the district was making some monetary, even give some monetary funds and trying to give some consideration as to what might support teachers, but we just wasn't being, made known. Or even in another district we work with, there were counseling sessions that were available for anybody, for adults. But the people just didn't know where to find that on the website. There was a website that would link you to, like, we have that actually for students as well, that will link you to the best provider for, depending on what you want to be seen for. And you could get up to like 6 sessions, right? Apart from even like what you were doing with your insurance. So it was like, oh, well, great. We need to make posters letting people know, like, here's the link to go to. Here's how you get connected, right? If you want additional support. There's also something called the Professional Quality of Life Scale, which I think is a really cool tool. It just kind of helps you understand where your staff and your school is at as far as climate goes, and supporting overall well-being and health. So that might just be something to use at a staff meeting. It's short, and then you could discuss the results. Here's what I put some of those suggestions in the more tiered, just because we're talking multi-tiered systems of support. And just that quick review for us for multi-tiered, right? Tier 1 is something that's available for everybody. It's large group. It happens frequently, right? But then for somebody who might need a little bit of additional support, that doesn't mean they get out of Tier 1, right? They still get all the things offered in Tier 1, but it's like a cake. We just layer on a second layer, or ice cream, right? It's like, here's everybody gets a couple scoops, right? But maybe Tier 2 is like the sprinkles. You still get your scoops, but now you need to have something sprinkled in, a little more support, right? Or Tier 3 is like, okay, you need some really more that one-on-one support, and we're going to layer one more thing on there. So Tier 1 is usually large group, right? Tier 2 is usually small group. Tier 3 is usually that one-on-one support. So just some things, if you already have an MTSS team, actually, they may be your social emotional team as well. They may already be looking at that. Or I know at some sites they do that separately. They have their MTSS team, and then they have their SEL team, which is great. Really dedicate portions of your professional learning or staff meetings to build an understanding around burnout. Like, call it what it is, call it out. Be like, hey, here's some signs of burnout. We understand that you might be experiencing this. First of all, normalize it. I think that is one of the biggest ways we build resilience. You know, Dr. Brene Brown lets us know the biggest way to build shame resilience is to normalize the hard. Because what's the biggest lie our brain tells us we're going through something difficult? You're the only one. You're the only one who feels like an ineffective teacher right now, or social worker, or counselor, or leader. You're the only one that feels overwhelmed by your demands of the job. You're the only one who jumps on websites to go search out other jobs because you think you're done. You're the only one who feels like you're being critical with yourself, or putting yourself down because you're not the educator you want to be. But when we can see, wait, no, you're not the only one, right? Like, when we can normalize it and talk about it, it's like, wait a minute, I'm not the only one experiencing this. And again, that doesn't maybe necessarily change you. You might still pursue different things, which is fine, but at least it lets you know you're not alone, right? And then you can see, like, okay, what can we do next? I think leaders modeling healthy boundaries. So I have a leader friend. She's really great. She's like, I realize she's like, when my brain is on fire is, really late at night. She's like, but I stopped sending emails late at night because I realized that was overwhelming my staff. When they would wake up in the morning, they felt they had missed out on something. Like they should have been on their computers late at night too. And she was like, that's just me. I didn't realize that wasn't my intention, but that was the impact it was having, right? Institutionalizing self-care activities. So coming on the PA and being like, after lunch, okay, we're all going to take our mindful moment. So again, we're not putting it just on the individuals, but as a school collectively, we're all tuning in for this time, right? And we're having a common language around it, which is cool for staff and students. And students are seeing adults model what it looks like to take good care of yourself, right? And actually allocating some funds toward this, right? Hence the, like we were talking about with it doesn't just have to be a gym membership, but just allocating some funds for this. If we're going to say it's a priority, then we need to put money behind it, right? And then you can see here just offering some support groups or creating a staff request. A lot of times with MTSS supports, we have requests for assistance or RFAs for students when we feel like they need some more support, but you could create an RFA for adults too, right? If that was something your staff felt comfortable with. And then offering, those individual counseling sessions, when we're like, okay, we still need some more. Because as we know, Tier 1 doesn't come in place of when you really need a mental health therapist, right? Somebody, if you're experiencing something that needs just more attention. So I just covered a lot. That was the biggest section, just because it really addresses the why we need this for adults, and that it's so important to have systems in place and not just put it all on the individual people. So just would love to hear, so we know we need to like synthesize info, right? Why is it important to strengthen individual well-being and or to create organizational systems to support well-being? Or you can answer just what ideas do you have for Tier 1, Tier 2, or Tier 3 strategies to boost well-being for adults? Or maybe you have some at your site and we want to learn together, because this is what it's all about. I'm learning so many great things from other educators as I go around and talk to them about this topic. So take a minute, think about maybe what your school's already doing, or your district, and or just anything that's standing out to you, or why it's so critical to invest in adults first, to start there. Why is that the important piece? You are quick in the box. Thank you. Oh, and I'm sorry, I missed something from back here. Overwhelmed is a common theme. Clearly, we all have a way too much on our plates. Yes, thanks, Abigail, for um, commenting earlier about that, right? That overwhelm seems to be the common between 2017 or 2020, right? So again, what are we going to do about that? How do we address the overwhelm? Yeah, Christina, I love that you say that. In fact, that reminds me, Christina says we can't teach skills to students if we don't practice them. Modeling is such a powerful tool, right? I think that's so amazing, right? I love the quote, the loudest curriculum will always be the adult in the room, right? So I can teach, don't get me wrong, I think it's really important to teach explicit lessons on social emotional learning. It's important to teach an explicit lesson on empathy or gratitude or, managing stress. Or we can, or I should say, and we can just be empathetic when a student comes to us and has something they're struggling with or they're having a bad day. We can just model empathy, right? Or when I loved it, I saw a kindergarten teacher, it was so brilliant. The class was really loud and she was she couldn't teach because it was so loud, right? And she just stopped and she said, her word was windy. She said, I'm feeling a little windy inside. She says, because it's really hard for me to concentrate now because there's so much talking. What do you all do when it's hard for you to concentrate? And I have to tell you, I was like, it was the most brilliant thing. The kids all got quiet and they started raising their hand of what they do when they're having a hard time concentrating or, managing some hard emotion. And I'm like, she's brilliant, right? But she modeled for them, hey, I'm feeling windy. I need to stop and take a minute. What are you going to do, right? And she was modeling it with them. And I thought, oh, how cool. Oh, cool. And Kyla, I love it. Opportunity to request a break during the day. Exactly. Tap in, tap out. That's a great one. It's like you're reading our minds, Kyla. That's something that's coming up. And that's so right? To have a tap in, tap out system. I work with a school and they do that. They have a remind. Maybe some of you use a different app, but a remind that teachers can choose to join. It's totally optional. And that's the other big thing about these things, right? We can't force people into it. We want them to have voice and choice and autonomy because that's a big reason why people feel, irked with education is you're telling me, what to do. But if you want to sign up for the remind, it's a group app. So everybody that wants to be on is on it. You could just say, hey, can I have a quick break? And somebody in the remind group is going to come and tap out, let you tap out for a minute. I love that. Yes, put your oxygen mask on first. What do they say in the airplane, right? Put your oxygen mask on first because you can't help anybody else. It's important for us to take care of ourselves. Yes. Thank you, Siobhan. Beautiful. Yes, perfect metaphor for this. Love that. Okay, team, we are rolling here. So we're going to go next to the belonging, connection, and relationships, right? So just quickly define belonging. Belonging is the feeling that you're valued and respected in any given context. So belonging is different than fitting in, right? This doesn't mean I change who I am so I can fit, right? Like Dr. Brene Brown says. It means I feel belonged. I feel known and accepted where I'm at. And it's not even fair to say I feel belonging in my family because you might go to one family member's house and you might feel like you can totally be yourself. Like, right? You're like, oh, I can just really say what I need to say without feeling judged. I feel known here, right? They already have out like my favorite drink waiting for me, right? Or I can go into a place with my family and I'm just saying hypothetically, maybe I go to another family member's house and I feel like I'm walking on eggshells. I feel like I have to be careful what I say. I feel like there's still some resentment from years ago, right? And so that's belonging, right? Like feeling like you're accepted or known in a place. And when we feel socially isolated, right, especially so at work, this can be for personally too, but we feel socially isolated, our risk for depression, anxiety, and poor sleep increases, which again negatively impacts health and performance. So things when we don't feel like we belong, it actually puts us in our downstairs brain, right? Fight or flight. In the same way, if we feel like we're in physical danger, we go into a fight or flight mode, right? Same thing happens when we feel social pain. So physical pain and social pain activate the same region of our brain, right? The brain can't distinguish between a broken arm or a broken heart. It just knows it doesn't feel good, right? So here's the great thing though. When we do feel supported, when we feel connected, when we feel known at our site, when people know something more about us than just the subject that we teach or the job that we do, right? Stress levels go down, which actually decreases our cortisol level, right? That's the stress hormone. So if we have less cortisol, that boosts our immune system and literally strengthens our heart. It's kind of amazing. So I'm going to have you look at this actually. So a lot of times in sessions that go a little bit longer, we do these belonging boards where people will write in regards to this question. So how has a feeling of not belonging affected your attendance, your motivation, your engagement, your performance and or your physical or emotional health. So we asked them, think back to when you were in school or a job that you've had when you didn't feel like you belonged, right? How did that impact how you showed up physically or emotionally or mentally? And so I would love for you, if you right now, if you want to take a minute, this was from a board, actually from one we did in some folks in Hawaii. It was virtual though. I wish we were in person. Would have been nice. I want you to say, if you can, feel free if you see any patterns, or if you can relate to any of these, or you just give an emoji of some sort, like, yes, that totally makes sense, or yes, I see that. I know for me, when I didn't feel connected at a job I had previously, it was the culture was such that it was meant to be, I think the boss wanted us to be pushing ourselves, but it just became very competitive and negative. And so people would, if you shared your work, they would kind of steal and take credit because I think everybody wanted attention from the leader. So I just stopped sharing because I just felt like I felt so uncomfortable, or I thought like people were going to be really critical of my ideas. And that's just not me. I'm usually very collaborative. I want to share. I'm very involved. And so I just really felt like, and honestly, it made me want to leave that job. And I eventually did. But you'll notice here what people are saying when they didn't feel belonged. I felt nervous and quiet. I disengaged from the group, unmotivated. I felt anxious, looked for the nearest exit, started to stop caring and disengage. So if any of those, if you're like, yes, that makes sense, or any patterns that you see on the connection between belonging and well-being, let us know what you're noticing. Yeah, I feared being judged for what I was saying, right? I would not get involved and actually find ways to get out of things. Tend to keep to myself or not talk to anybody. Yeah, thanks, Christina. Right, yeah, a lot of disengagement or isolation. Absolutely, Kyla. I mean, if we were doing this about students, I would say sometimes we talk about the academic gap or achievement gap. And I would say sometimes, is it a belonging gap? Because before we can be in our upstairs brain and be at our personal best to apply ourselves, we have to have our safety needs met, right? Our downstairs brain needs to feel safe, secure, and attached. So absolutely, students need this. And so that we can provide that for students, we as the adults deserve to feel safe, secure, and attached, right? In fact, I have to tell you, I read the research on this early on in my career, especially when I started to do more staff development. But after seeing this, we've probably heard from now thousands of people, and it's the same reactions you get about when they felt like they didn't belong. And I can't even tell you how many little stories I've heard. Like one gentleman told me, he said, I don't think my principal knows my first name, and I've been here for 4 years. And I was like, well, what makes you say that? And he said, well, he still calls me young man. And now I guarantee if you went to that principal and you asked him, hey, is it your intention to try to make somebody on your staff feel disconnected or that they don't belong here by calling him young man? I guarantee that it would never be the principal's intention, right? But this is the difference between intention and impact, right? Sometimes our intention is to not make somebody feel like they don't belong. That's never our intention, right? To not make a child or an adult on our campus feel like they don't belong. But that's the impact, right, that it has. I remember walking in, I work in Southern California, so I worked in a huge school district, right? And so I walked in the first day, and there's like, for the first day of a meeting, and there's like, 180 plus people on staff. And I walked into that theater, I felt so overwhelmed. And all I needed was for one person to say hello to me. And luckily they did. They were wonderful. So I want to say this, leaders are very much responsible for creating the culture of a school, right? In these systems, but we are too, as the members of the system, right? It was one really nice math teacher. I could get a little emotional thinking about it. She just said, hey, are you new? And I was like, yes. And she made me feel welcome, right? All I needed in that moment was just to feel like somebody saw me and somebody wanted me there. Right. And we have the ability to do that. Sometimes we're waiting for somebody to do that to us, and that other people might be waiting for someone to do it to them. Right. So we get to be that too, that we can reach out to people. So we already did that one. Great job, team. We're already there. So we know that when adults don't feel like they belong, less enjoyment at work, less engaged, right? Less productive. And you could probably look at this. This is how students feel too. The data is the same for students. Less engaged, right? They check out. They become apathetic, right? They become oppositional a little bit, right? Those are all things that happen for adults, and they happen for kids too when they don't feel belonged. But here's the good news, my friends. When we walk from that downstairs brain up to our upstairs brain and we feel belonged and connected and seen and known, somebody knows something about me. Well, they know my name. They call me by my right name. It seems silly, but kids and adults want the same things. Know my name, say my name correctly, and know something about me other than just my job. For adults is what they're asking. For students, know something about me other than my attendance or my grade point average, or what I'm not doing great in, right, academically. When we feel like you know something about me and things that are important to me, the brain goes into the reward state. It's in its upstairs brain mode. The executive functioning kicks in. We perceive more options to problems. We're more insightful and collaborative. We're less likely to quit. Overall higher job performance, and we get a boost in well-being. So I wanted to give you something, again, practical. This is not, what I'm about to give you is not like, so Kyla, if you don't mind putting the Pear Deck link, that'd be awesome. This is not like, again, hugely life-changing, systems changing, but I just want to give you something that you could like maybe do with your staff or students. Staff, when you go to the next staff meeting to build belonging, or your next collaboration meeting, we call them professional learning communities. So, or professional learning, groups. But if you could click on that Pear Deck link, that would be awesome. And you're going to come to something. I'm going to stop sharing for a minute so I can get mine pulled up for us. Ooh, some of you are already there. You're quick. And if you don't want to do this, if you're having any trouble with the Pear Deck, no worries. You can just answer these questions in the chat box too. So you can click on that link that's in the chat box, or you can go to joinpd.com, and there's a little code, the GEMNAD, that's in the right-hand corner, and you can join there. All right. Awesome. So here we go. Let's just do a little bit of belonging. Let's see if we can build some belonging, even though we're far away in different places. Just a quick this or that. What would you rather? Are you more of a caller or a texter? Do you call or do you text? What do you do? Do you call or do you text? Ooh, several of you are getting in there. So I, from my teacher window, can see you should be able to drag a little dot and just put the dot over which one you prefer more. Ooh, I see people going back and forth. I love it. Okay, we'll do 5. And if you'd rather, you can just enter in the chat box as well. You can say call, text. That's great too. We'd love to see it. Or even if you're doing a Pear Deck and you want to get in the chat box too, beautiful. All right, team, here we go. Let's see what we've got. People are saying we have about 2 who call, and oh, sorry, that's right. I changed it this way to the multiple choice. 2 who call and about 5 who text. And if you want to put in the chat box why you prefer what you prefer, that's great. If you want to say, oh, I'm definitely a texter because it's quicker, or if you want to say I call because it's more personal, let us know. I'm a texter because usually it's a little quicker, but I also have to tell you, I should add a third option. I love a good voice memo. It's like the sincerity of a call, but the brevity of a text. All right, team, next one, this or that. If you had a superpower between these two, would you rather read minds or fly? What are you doing? Oh, nice, Taylor. Buys you some response time. I appreciate that. Christopher, I love it. I have to hear a voice. I respect that, Christopher. It is nice to hear somebody for real. Oh, you're getting really quick with this. I love this. Here we go, team. Wow, most of you want to fly. And again, if you want to let us know in the chat box why you chose fly over reading minds, great. Mine is probably because I have enough thoughts of my own that I have to deal with, that I can't always manage, that I don't need any extras. All right, team. You're going on a vacation. Winter break's coming up. Are you going to the mountains? You going to the beach? Where are you hanging up? And let's just say, because Oprah loves educators, she's the one paying for it. Are you going on a mountain vacation, a beach vacation? I'm with you. Yeah, Katrina, that's also kind of the thing. Like, it's just better if I don't know. I know I present a lot, so sometimes it's better if I don't know what people are thinking. Oh, Kyla, mountain but with oceans. I appreciate the specificity. Okay, team, here we go. Wow, a lot of us are heading to the beach. I think it's cold where a lot of us are at right now. I love it. Let's just do maybe one or 2 more. Would you rather eat the same food every day or listen to the same music every day? What are you doing? If you had to just pick one, I know it's very limiting. Students always are like, this is a tough one for them. They're like, what, Fuller? You're making me pick same food or same music? All right, here we go. We've got, nice. Okay, a lot of you say music. You need some food variety. I can respect that. All right, last one. This is going to be a this or that or that. Are you if you're going diving, are you going scuba diving, skydiving? You're like, Jessie, you cannot make me pick. A hard pass on both. I had to add that third one because many people were like, Jessie, you can't, you're not making me choose. Are you a skydiver, a scuba diver, or like, no? If my gift was working, the cats head would be going, no, no, just no, no. Okay, we've got some no ways. We've got some scuba divers, no skydivers, which is okay. I respect that. In one of my sessions, I had a person who had sky dove, would it be dove, past tense? Over 50 times. I was like, is that even physically possible? I don't know if it is. I mean, isn't there some rule? I don't know. It seems like there should be some rule. So yes, well, awesome. Well, thank you, team. And just kind of check in. You can kind of reflect to yourself, just like, how do you feel after that? You know, not knowing anybody right before that, but just knowing like, hey, okay, here's where my group is at, right? Or how could you adapt this to do, again, it doesn't take a lot of time. Again, I know, because that's always the thing. We have so many things fitting in our meeting or our PLC, just a few minutes, this or that, right? And then maybe have them turn and talk about one answer. Or another thing I'm going to share with you right now too, which is on, so like I said, that this or that is on your resource guide. Another thing that's on your resource guide is this. I love this site. It's free. It's called WordWall. There is a premium version, but nobody's about that life, right? You can get a free version. You can make your own interactive boards. So I do these, and my students actually help me create this one. And you spin it. And this one we call the Wheel of Questions, or Ask a Question. You have a round trip plane ticket to travel anywhere in the world. Where are you going? Love this other one. If you could spend your birthday with one person, who would it be? There's some other fun ones on there. Like if you could shrink yourself down to, if you could shrink one animal down to the size of like a finger, what would that be? And so I would say, you know, use these again, definitely with students, but use them at a staff meeting, right? Just spin the wheel, do a couple questions. Again, it doesn't have to take a lot of time. And ideally, even I would invite you to try to think about even changing up seating arrangements. I know that sounds so silly and almost like, oh, adults aren't going to like that, having to be told where to sit. But if sometimes, so not always, but if you designate, like we've done at our staff meetings, like, you know, we designate it by like candy sometimes, or food, right? Like, oh, you're part of the Twix table. So when you come in, you get a Twix, you go to that, and it's designated like with the Twix sign, right? You're the Milky Way table, or things like that. Just so people are getting a chance to meet and talk to other people. Because sometimes we're sitting with the same people. And so we kind of have these like echo chambers, right? Where we're only hearing the same things. So this just kind of helps to get to know folks that you might not ordinarily get to know. And I've had that feedback so many times. Like at first I didn't love sitting with somebody, like not getting to pick where I sat, but then it was really nice because I got to talk to somebody or know somebody that I didn't know, or I've not gotten to meet. And sometimes like one staff, it was like, and we both worked here for several years, but just because we're larger, we just didn't know each other. So those are just some small things to do, because as educators and leaders, we're the broker of relationships. In other words, we're the social architects. So it's our job to create spaces and structures that build connection, right? 'Cause connection, just because we show up to the same place doesn't mean we're connected, right? I'm sure you all know that very well. Like sometimes we talk to the same people, not because we're trying to be exclusionary, like, you know, not because we're trying to like exclude anybody, but hey, I just talk to the same people or eat lunch with the same people because that's what I've been doing, right, for a long time. So how can we mix that up a little bit? If you for some reason lose the resource guide, just so you know, we have a bunch of several more just easy ways to connect staff and students, ready to go things on the website. Just want to give you those, because it's worth it, right? The data, the research is pretty strong. I'm not going to read everything to you, but this is what the Harvard Business Review says. So this is not just in education. This is in any organization. When they really prioritize belonging, this is what happens, right? 40% less burnout, right? 70% more alignment with the company's purpose, 29% more satisfaction with not just professional, but personal life, right? 76% increase in engagement. So there's just some really amazing byproducts when we feel, hey, we belong here, because we're wired to belong. And this is big, again, not just in education. We read a lot to actually prepare for this, but often we want to see like what's happening in different domains. Like how can this translate in other, like if it's working in other places, and it should hopefully transfer as well. And so these are some of the books that, you know, we've read before putting the presentation together. And like I know in my district, we're actually doing a book study. The leaders are on culture code, and belonging is the first thing he talks about. He says that's everything. He said you can do tons of other things, but if you don't have a basis or a foundation of belonging, then nothing's really going to stand, right? Or I'm not sure a lot of us have heard of Simon Sinek. He talks about the power of belonging, or Brene Brown, just really, really critical in any organization. Something else, again, we want to give you really tangible tools. This is the RISE index, and you can see the 4 domains on the left, what this is intended to do, but it's really supposed to be a tool for schools to assess and prioritize and plan activities that will promote the social emotional health and well-being of students and staff. So you can see the different areas that it has, and there's it's not too lengthy. It's just got a few questions in each domain. And so it's just there to just get input, right? To find out how people feel about the level of well-being and belonging on campus, and then to help you make some decisions, to give some debrief questions of decisions of where we want to go as a student, as a staff, right? Because we want to have input, right, and feedback. So just some things to think about at the tiered levels for building belonging, right? Really being intentional, as we mentioned earlier at the beginning of the presentation, when we gather adults, take a minute to give connection time. Oftentimes, we're talking so much about like business pieces or things related to tasks for our jobs, which is very important, right? Or maybe send some of those if they're like just to-dos, like in an email, right? But really take advantage or capitalize on the time that we're together as adults to connect your staff, right? So frequent staff check-ins, maybe have like family groups or teams. One of the sites I support, so cool. They're doing like, is it The Greatest Race? Why am I'm calling it the wrong thing. What's the show? Why am I?
The Amazing Race?
The Amazing Race. Thank you. The Amazing Race. Appreciate it. So, but they have put not only students on different teams for the Amazing Race, they've put all staff members are connected too. So those are kind of like your buddies, and there's different like challenges you can do each month, as staff and students. So it's really kind of cool that they have a way to say, hey, you belong to this team, right? Use data from the RISE survey, or it doesn't have to be RISE, right? Just some other assessment tool so that you can really get a sense, right? You don't have to, especially as a leader, you don't just have to intuit this. Get input, see what your staff feels, and then they feel more invested in the process. And then providing explicit, staff development around belonging. It's important how to use it in your classroom, but again, for them first, so they feel it first. And SEL skills like around relationship building and social awareness. You can create some staff support groups. We had one at my site because I work at an alt ed site, and it can get tough, right? So it was totally optional, but if people wanted to opt in, we met every few weeks, and it was really just to check in with each other. A lot of times we do some mindfulness or some like mindful coloring, or someone would bring something that they had read that was really helpful for them. But just having that option available if staff want that. We called it our local wellness club. And then if we need to, if some relationships have been harmed, doing some type of restorative practice to bring those together, right? So that doesn't just like ruminate and now you have years worth of like resentment, because we know that can happen. And what I always talk about with students, just like with adults, like we're together a lot, so there will be conflict. That is a byproduct of people being in the same place, but we're gonna learn how to manage that conflict, right? Cool. We're sliding into our tail end, friends. So I know we're about to run out of time a little bit. So I'll give you this presentation so you can go over purpose and agency. But just to kind of give a quick little nugget, if we can find ways to help teachers build purpose, and one little activity that I've seen a lot of schools adopt is taking staff through a reflective process and helping them build their why out. So just connecting them to why do we show up each day, which kind of seems like, well, of course we know why we're here to educate kids. But I think sometimes in the daily grind of things, I know at least for me, it starts to just feel like I'm in a rut and I'm running through the same routines, and it's kind of hard. I lose sight of what my big why is, right? Like I love this music teacher. She wrote, "Music helped me find my voice, both literally and figuratively. I teach so that I can help others find their voice too." So I think this is kind of a cool activity. One other big way I think we can help people remember their purpose is to let them see that what they do matters. So I'm going to have us close with this. I'm going to let you take a minute. I'm going to encourage you to get out your phone and actually send a text to someone who you think is really living out their purpose pretty brilliantly, and to encourage them, because I think what doesn't happen, not because we don't want to, but because we get busy, taking the time to really give appreciation to others in our organization, right? But I'm going to let you text anybody. This doesn't just have to be your work people. This can be your personal people too. But to close out, I want you to take a little screenshot of this in case, because I'll close after this because I want to be mindful of your time. But I would encourage you to do a 3-part thank you. These are really cool. Any thank you is good, but thank you for, and be specific. Tell that person specifically why you're thankful. It was so thoughtful of you because, and you're really good at. This is actually an evidence-based way to write a thank you. I know it seems like silly that there's even research around this, but it amplifies the appreciation. So like this morning, I would say to my husband, thank you for setting out a bag of tea and a mug this morning. It was so thoughtful of you because you knew I was going to be waking up early. You're just really good at thinking of me and supporting me in things that are important to me, right? And so I would encourage you to send a text. Maybe if this is your takeaway from today, send a text weekly. Do more appreciation, because I think that's huge. It lets people know, hey, you matter and you're part of this organization. It also builds belonging because it lets them know like what you do is valued here. So the 3-part thank you is awesome. And let me tell you this, some people, you might get a response that's like, wait a minute, is everything okay? Or what's going on? Not because you're not a nice person, because it's just not every day that we're this specific with our gratitude. So don't worry if you get one of those messages back, or don't worry if you don't get any message back, because gratitude or appreciation isn't about what we receive, right? It's about how it makes us feel. So my friends, on that note, let me do this. Let me just say thank you so much for tuning in. In the words of my favorite role model teacher, take chances, make mistakes, get messy. We're not going to get it right. We're not always gonna get the system right. We're gonna try some things. It's not gonna land. Sometimes our staff's gonna be like, whoa, I'm not into this. That's okay. It doesn't mean we're not learning from it, right? That's how we get better. That's how we grow. So we got to be willing to make mistakes in this process as we try to support each other and continue to support each other well, because what we do really matters, really matters. So I just want to say thank you for being here. Thank you not just for being here, but for what you do on a daily basis to support your colleagues and your students to live into their fullest, best selves. You're amazing. Thank you.
Wow, Jessie, you are incredible. I loved every second of your presentation.
Thanks, Kyla.
I have so many things I'd love to share. I know we're really out of time, but just thank you so much. And I did want to share for everyone who did attend today, if you did not get a chance to attend our SEL Vision Summit, Jessie also presented at that as well. And her presentation there was just as amazing. So if you didn't get a chance to attend, we do have all that content on demand now, and you can get all of that on demand for only $25. But because you attended today, we're going to give you a special code, Jessie F22, and we'll drop it in the chat for you to get 25% off. But we are also going to give away one free on-demand package to one of you that are here right now. So in order to participate, just really quickly, we'd love for you to drop in the chat box a suggestion on a topic for us to cover at one of our next Aperture webinars. It can be really quick. It doesn't need to be grammatically correct or have a correct capitalization. Student behaviors, that's a good one, Katrina. So I'll give you guys a moment to type in, and we're going to pick one of you at random, and you're going to win a free on-demand pass to all of our content from our summit, which had the lovely Jessie. We also had Scarlett Lewis from Choose Love. We had Urban Assembly with a panel, lots of Connecticut, and over 25 amazing sessions. So Christina, yeah, deep dive into Tier 1 support. Okay, I love that. I love it. All right, I have a colleague on the background randomly selecting one of you, so I'm waiting on them to respond. Yes, Shannon, adult culture, building positive adult culture in the building. I love that. I think that, I hate to say, is more important than academics sometimes, but where we are right now, I feel like that is our priority for sure. All right, and the winner is Christina. So Christina Zandi or Zondi, hopefully I'm saying your name almost correct. We will send you an email with your all access code to have access to all of our on-demand content for our SEL Vision Summit. So thank you so much. We appreciate that. You're welcome, Christina. All right, well, thank you, Jessie, for sharing your expertise with us. You're doing such amazing things for every student you work with, the families in your schools, and we really appreciate your work with SEL. Thank you, attendees, for joining us today. We're going to be sending a follow-up email that will have the recording of this presentation and resources within 24 hours. So again, thank you all for everything you do. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye-bye.